Did you know that even the most powerful empire of ancient history, invincible Rome, faced a defeat so humiliating that it is still remembered today as one of the most astonishing episodes of antiquity? In this video, we will explore the story of the Kingdom of Kush, an African civilization that not only dared to challenge Rome but also triumphed brilliantly, leaving the world in shock. Discover how a determined people, armed with impeccable strategy and unwavering courage, managed to defeat the most feared army of the era. If you believe that giants always win, get ready to be surprised. This is the story of how the Kingdom of Kush brought Rome to its knees and etched its name in history with golden letters. Are you ready to uncover the truth behind this epic battle? Picture a stunning landscape where the Nile cuts through vast golden deserts and the land vibrates under the heat of the African sun. This was the Kingdom of Kush, a place rich in history, wealth, and a proud people who refused to kneel before any empire, not even the all-powerful Roman Empire. At the heart of this kingdom ruled an extraordinary leader, Amidst, a queen who not only bore the crown but also wielded the sword, leading her people in one of the boldest battles against Rome. Amidst lived in a time when Rome seemed unstoppable. Under Augustus's command, the empire was expanding like never before. After defeating Cleopatra and Mark Antony, Augustus annexed Egypt, transforming it into his most precious jewel. Egypt was a key piece in Rome's power game, vital for the economic and military control of the region. Obsessed with security, Augustus stationed 3 legions there to ensure no one dared challenge his rule. But he underestimated Kush's resolve. The Romans, with their characteristic arrogance, began imposing tributes and extending their influence over lands traditionally controlled by Kush. For Amidst, this was more than a territorial invasion. It was an insult to her people and their sovereignty. She knew the Romans would not stop on their own. Instead of waiting for the attack, she chose to strike first. Have you ever tried to understand the wars that made Rome the greatest empire in the world, but ended up lost in all the confusing details? If so, you're not alone. Imagine finally mastering the key details that shaped Rome, learning the strategies of great generals like Julius Caesar and Scipio Africanus, and understanding how their maneuvers changed the course of history. Knowing how hard it can be to find these insights, I've made my digital book, The 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire, available to you. It provides clear and direct access to all this knowledge. Understand how Rome won impossible battles, discover curiosities you won't find anywhere else, and become an expert in Roman military history. Check out the pinned comment and get your copy now, as our stock is running out. Rallying her army, composed of skilled archers and seasoned warriors, Amidst launched a daring attack on the Roman garrisons in southern Egypt. This was not just a battle, it was a statement. The Kushites quickly advanced, capturing strategic positions and raiding Roman territories. But the most symbolic blow came when they found a statue of Augustus himself. They didn't leave it intact. Decapitating the statue, they carried the head as a trophy, a gesture loaded with defiance and resistance. Amidst took an even bolder step. She buried the bronze head of the emperor beneath the steps of a temple in Meroe, the capital of Kush. There, anyone entering the temple would step on the image of the Roman leader. It was a direct affront, a cry for freedom that echoed through every stone of that sacred place. Meanwhile, in Rome, news of the humiliation reached Augustus's ears. Imagine a man accustomed to victories seeing his authority challenged by a kingdom that in Roman eyes should have been insignificant. For Augustus, this was not just a matter of war, it was a matter of honor. He needed to respond, not only to protect his lands but also to reaffirm his image as an invincible emperor. But at that moment, the balance of power had shifted. Queen Amidst had shown the world that even a giant like Rome could be challenged. Before we continue, make sure to save the name and image of this channel so you can always return to this reliable source about the history of Rome. Now check if you've subscribed, because here you'll find rigorously researched and presented facts about one of the most influential civilizations in history. After the conquest of Egypt, Augustus consolidated the territory as a province directly subordinated to him, which was unusual within the administrative structure of the Roman Empire. Egypt was not just another territory, it represented a crucial strategic base and an essential source of grain to supply Rome. Its economic and military importance demanded constant vigilance and firm administration, and Augustus knew this from the beginning. The transformation of Egypt into a province was accompanied by strict measures. Augustus dispatched 3 legions to ensure the region's security: the Legio III Cyrenaica, the Legio XXIV Deotariana, and a 3rd legion whose name has been lost to time. These forces, comprising around 15,000 soldiers, were strategically stationed in cities like Thebes and Alexandria, ready to quickly intervene in case of internal revolts or external threats. Despite this, problems began to arise shortly after the occupation. Augustus appointed Gaius Cornelius Gallus as the province's first governor. Gallus had a reputation for being competent and loyal, but his ambition soon became evident. After suppressing an initial revolt in southern Egypt, Gallus led a military campaign across the first cataract of the Nile into Nubian territory. Not only did he achieve significant victories, but he also decided to immortalize them grandiosely. He inscribed detailed accounts of his achievements on monuments throughout Egypt, even carving his name atop the pyramids. This behavior, however, was seen by Augustus as an affront. To the emperor, the glory of Egypt should belong exclusively to him, and any attempt at self-promotion by a governor was unacceptable. Gallus was quickly removed from his position, stripped of his wealth, and, facing imminent disgrace, took his own life. His downfall marked the beginning of a more cautious administration directly controlled by Augustus. With Gallus out of the picture, Augustus chose Aelius Gallus as the next governor, a man considered more submissive and less prone to acts of personal ambition. However, Aelius Gallus's administration was not more successful. He led a military expedition to Arabia Felix, intended to consolidate Roman control in the region and exploit its riches, but the campaign ended in logistical and military disaster. The expedition drained resources, diverted essential troops from Egypt, and left the province's southern borders vulnerable to potential invasions. This partial withdrawal of Roman forces created a dangerous vulnerability. Although Egypt had been transformed into a strategic military base, the allocation of troops to other campaigns left the region exposed to attacks. Furthermore, the Roman administration faced internal problems, such as dissatisfaction among the local population, which was still adjusting to the new regime after the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Many Egyptians did not see the Romans as saviors, but as new conquerors exploiting their lands and resources. It was in this context of weakness and instability that the Kingdom of Kush, to the south, began to closely observe Rome's movements. Although Augustus had turned Egypt into a strategic fortress, his disorganized administration and poor choice of leaders were creating gaps that would not go unnoticed by a neighboring nation that understood the terrain and regional dynamics all too well. Tell me in the comments if you already knew about this story, one of Rome's most embarrassing defeats. Imagine Egypt as a land simmering with tensions. After Cleopatra's death, the empire that had once been ruled by powerful pharaohs and the Ptolemaic dynasty was transformed into a Roman province. But not everyone accepted this transition peacefully. The cities were restless, the southern borders vulnerable, and the Egyptian people still reluctant to call the Romans their rulers. In this turbulent setting, Augustus appointed Gaius Cornelius Gallus as the first Roman governor of Egypt. Gallus arrived as a determined man, a disciplined soldier loyal to the emperor. He knew he had to act quickly to show that Rome was in control. Early in his administration, he managed to suppress revolts that threatened the region's stability. His most notable campaign was in the south, where he crossed the first cataract of the Nile and took the island of Philae, a strategically vital position. This victory dealt a decisive blow to the rebels and seemed to signal a period of stability. But Gallus didn't stop there. He wanted the world to know about his accomplishments. To that end, he ordered the construction of monuments celebrating his victories and inscribed his name and deeds on inscriptions scattered throughout Egypt. Even the pyramids, symbols of the glory of ancient pharaohs, were used as a stage for his self-promotion. Gallus didn't want to be just an administrator. He wanted to be immortalized as a conqueror. This thirst for recognition, however, was his downfall. Augustus, pragmatic and efficient though he was intolerant of any form of individual spotlight that could divert attention from his own authority. To the emperor, Gallus was crossing a dangerous line, turning the province into a stage for his personal glory. News reached Rome, and Augustus's response was ruthless. Gallus was stripped of his position, lost his possessions, and, consumed by shame and despair, took his own life. After this crisis, Augustus decided to proceed with greater caution. He appointed Aelius Gallus as the next governor, choosing someone he believed would be more discreet and obedient. However, Aelius soon faced a challenge that would test his leadership. An expedition to Arabia Felix, planned as a campaign to expand Roman influence and exploit the region's wealth, ended in total disaster. Logistical failures, diseases, and difficult terrain turned the mission into a complete failure. The impact was devastating. A significant portion of the Egyptian troops had been deployed for this expedition, leaving Egypt's southern border exposed and weakened. This vulnerability caught the attention of a neighbor who had long been watching Rome's movements, the Kingdom of Kush. The Romans, known for their military discipline, were now showing signs of weakness, and the Kingdom of Kush, led by the fearless queen Amanirenas, was ready to seize the moment. If you're enjoying this content and feel these stories of Rome are helping you better understand the empire that shaped the world, don't forget to leave a like. This not only helps spread the true history of Rome to more people, but also ensures YouTube shows you more videos like this. So hit the like button and strengthen this journey of historical discoveries. In 24 BC, the Kingdom of Kush, under the leadership of Queen Amanirenas, carried out one of the most daring and strategic attacks against Roman power. The Kushite campaign was meticulously planned, taking advantage of the vulnerabilities in Roman defenses in Egypt, left exposed after Rome's disastrous expedition to Arabia Felix. The goal was clear: retaliate against Roman impositions, reclaim traditionally Kushite territories, and demonstrate the strength of Kush to the greatest empire of the time. The attack began with a precise incursion along the southern border of Egypt. Amanirenas' forces, composed of archers renowned for their deadly accuracy and soldiers experienced in the harsh desert terrain, moved quickly. They stormed Roman garrisons at Philae and advanced through nearby regions, capturing cities and raiding strategic positions. The speed and organization of the Kushite forces caught the Romans by surprise. The local garrisons, poorly equipped and unprepared, were unable to withstand the coordinated assault. The Kushites captured hundreds of Roman soldiers, along with a significant amount of supplies and weapons, which bolstered their forces. The plunder was not only an economic blow to the Romans, but also a demonstration of strength, sending a clear message that the Kushites were unafraid to challenge Rome. Furthermore, the attacks had a devastating impact on the local Egyptian population, already dissatisfied with the Roman presence. Many inhabitants were taken prisoner or displaced, further increasing instability in the region. The Kushite campaign was also marked by powerful symbolic actions. During the attacks, Amanirenas' troops encountered statues of Emperor Augustus, which the Romans used as propaganda tools to reinforce their authority and divinity. In an act of profound defiance, the Kushites destroyed these statues, decapitating the head of one of them. This gesture was more than mere vandalism. It was a direct provocation to Augustus, a reminder that his authority was not universally recognized. The head of the Augustus statue was taken to Meroe, the capital of Kush, where Amanirenas ordered it to be buried beneath the steps of a temple. This act held deep significance. Every person entering the temple would symbolically tread on Augustus's image, affirming Kush's rejection of Roman rule and celebrating the kingdom's resistance. The choice of location for this gesture demonstrated Amanirenas' political and strategic acumen, as she transformed a military victory into a declaration of independence and national pride. The impact of this campaign was profound. Rome, accustomed to swiftly subjugating its adversaries, now faced a public humiliation. News of the attack and the desecration of Augustus's images spread quickly, creating unease among Roman leaders. The defeat on the battlefield and the symbolic affront could not be ignored. Augustus was forced to confront the reality that his southern border was at risk, and that his image as an invincible ruler had been directly and unprecedentedly challenged. Amanirenas' campaign not only weakened Rome's presence in Egypt, but also marked a significant moment of resistance in ancient history. The Kushite attack served as a reminder that even a powerful empire like Rome was not immune to determined and well-planned challenges. However, the war between Rome and Kush was far from over, and Amanirenas' actions would be only the beginning of a longer and more complex conflict. And don't forget to grab your digital book, 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. It's important to secure your copy now before the limited stock runs out. Imagine the scene: the Roman general Gaius Petronius marching with his legions through the scorching Nubian desert under a relentless sun. His objective was clear: to avenge Rome's honor and crush the Kingdom of Kush. After the devastating attacks led by Queen Amanirenas, Emperor Augustus demanded an equally decisive response. Rome's pride was at stake, and Petronius, an experienced general, was tasked with restoring the empire's authority. The Roman army was a formidable force. Despite consisting of around 10,000 infantry and 800 cavalry, each soldier represented the discipline and rigor that had made Rome the dominant power in the world. But as they marched south, the environment began to reveal itself as a foe as deadly as the Kushite warriors they intended to face. The landscape was unforgiving. Sand dunes stretched as far as the eye could see, and the heat was suffocating. Water was scarce, and the little they had was rationed with extreme care. The soldiers, accustomed to marching across diverse terrains, found the desert to be a challenge that tested their physical and psychological limits. Some succumbed to exhaustion, while others fell victim to diseases that spread quickly under such harsh conditions. Even so, Petronius was a determined commander. He knew he could not return to Rome without a clear victory. The strength of the Roman army lay in its discipline, and he relied on this to keep morale high. After weeks of marching, the legions finally reached Napata, one of Kush's historic capitals. This city, a symbol of Kushite pride and culture, became the primary target of Roman wrath. Petronius's orders were swift and ruthless. Napata was to be destroyed. The Roman army looted the city, burned buildings, and captured hundreds of inhabitants who were enslaved or used as bargaining chips. For the Romans, this destruction was a clear message that no one defied Rome without consequences. But what seemed to be a significant victory soon revealed its cost. Before we continue, I noticed you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. We'll always bring you more content about Rome and this civilization's vital role in history. As the legions ventured deeper into Kushite territory, the terrain became increasingly hostile. The Romans, who relied on the Nile for supplies and mobility, began facing growing challenges. The scorching heat, unfamiliar terrain, and sporadic attacks from Kushite forces made each day a struggle for survival. Petronius realized that continuing to advance would be a fatal mistake. With this in mind, he made a strategic decision to order a withdrawal. But instead of abandoning the region entirely, he established garrisons in Lower Nubia. These defensive positions would serve as a buffer between Rome and Kush, protecting Egypt's southern border and ensuring that the empire maintained some military presence in the area. The destruction of Napata was a significant blow to Kush, but it was not enough to crush the Kushite spirit of resistance. Amanirenas, despite the losses, remained determined to continue the fight. For the Romans, Petronius's campaign was a mix of triumph and frustration. They had demonstrated their strength, but also encountered their limits in the unforgiving desert and the resilience of a kingdom that refused to be subdued. Thus, as the legions returned to Egypt carrying war trophies and tales of battles, the conflict between Rome and Kush was far from resolved. Amanirenas still had moves to make, and the struggle for dominance in the region would continue. What do you think of the story so far? Let me know in the comments if you already knew this story, and if there's anything I forgot to mention. Following the devastation of Napata and the consolidation of Roman garrisons in Lower Nubia, Amanirenas took steps to rebuild her army and organize a strategic response against Rome's forces. Petronius's initial attack had shaken the kingdom, but it had not destroyed the queen's determination or that of her people. Amanirenas launched an intense recruitment effort throughout Kush, rallying warriors from local tribes and strengthening the alliances that supported the kingdom. For her, reclaiming occupied territories was a priority, both militarily and symbolically. The Kushite army was prepared with great logistical effort. Weapon workshops were established to produce more bows and arrows, which remained the most effective weaponry against the Romans. The Kushites also reinforced their defenses and developed strategies based on their detailed knowledge of the terrain. Using the desert and the banks of the Nile to their advantage, Amanirenas' troops organized quick strikes and ambushes, aiming to weaken the Roman garrisons. The recovery campaign began with coordinated attacks on smaller Roman outposts. The garrisons along Lower Nubia faced Kushite incursions aimed at reclaiming territories and weakening the morale of enemy troops. Despite this, the Romans were well fortified. Under Petronius's orders, the garrisons had been strategically positioned and protected by fortifications that made it difficult for the Kushites to break through. Additionally, the Roman legions maintained their renowned discipline and organizational skills, giving them a significant advantage in direct combat. Over time, the conflict became prolonged and exhausting for both sides. The Kushites struggled to maintain a steady supply chain for their soldiers, as the war diverted resources needed for the kingdom's reconstruction. Moreover, Amanirenas' troops began to suffer significant casualties, reducing Kush's offensive capability. Despite their superior knowledge of the terrain, the Romans' tactical superiority and advanced equipment made any decisive progress nearly impossible. The Romans, however, faced their own challenges. Maintaining garrisons in a hostile territory, far from major supply lines, was a monumental logistical problem. The intense heat, water scarcity, and outbreaks of disease continuously weakened the Roman forces. Furthermore, the persistent Kushite resistance prevented the Romans from consolidating full control over the region, keeping Egypt's southern border in a constant state of tension. Faced with the stalemate, Amanirenas decided to propose a peace agreement. This decision was not made impulsively, but based on a careful assessment of the conflict's conditions and the needs of her people. The queen understood that the prolonged war was draining both sides, and that a diplomatic solution could ensure Kush's survival and autonomy without further destruction. Negotiations were conducted cautiously, and Amanirenas' stance during the process was firm. She demanded the withdrawal of Roman forces from traditionally Kushite territories and the repeal of tributes previously imposed by Rome. Her skillful negotiation, combined with the respect the Romans had gained for her leadership and resilience, played a crucial role in reaching a consensus. The conflict was nearing an outcome that would define not only the relationship between Rome and Kush, but also Amanirenas' legacy as one of the most remarkable figures in history to resist imperial power. And remember, whenever you want to learn more about Rome and how this civilization was formed, you can get your digital book, 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. Check the pinned comment and grab your copy now before we run out of stock. Imagine Augustus, seated in his grand residence in Rome, reflecting on an empire that seemed limitless. He had consolidated vast territories, transformed the Republic into an empire, and controlled the Mediterranean world with a firm hand. Yet now, amidst his victories and glories, a delicate decision awaited him. On one side stood the Kingdom of Kush, led by Amanirenas, a queen who had boldly challenged Roman power with courage and skill. On the other side were the Parthians, powerful adversaries threatening stability along the empire's eastern borders. The reports from Egypt were clear. The conflict with Kush had drained both the legions and Rome's resources. The harsh terrain, diseases, and relentless Kushite resistance had made further Roman advances unsustainable. Meanwhile, the Parthians continued to press in the east, demanding more troops, attention, and resources. Augustus knew that prolonging the war in the south was a risky gamble, and for a strategist like him, the empire's priorities were clear. It was then that Augustus made a decision that would shape the course of this history. He accepted Queen Amanirenas' terms, bringing the conflict with the Kingdom of Kush to an end. The Roman garrisons were withdrawn from Lower Nubia, returning control of their historical territories to the Kushites. Furthermore, the tribute previously imposed on Kush was completely cancelled, a rare concession for Rome but a necessary step to stabilize the region. Augustus's decision, however, was not purely pragmatic. He understood that this peace represented a new balance. The Kingdom of Kush, as an independent neighbor, posed no existential threat to Rome. On the contrary, trade between the two territories could be mutually beneficial. Precious goods would flow once again, and southern Egypt would become a peaceful border, freeing up legions to address greater challenges accumulating in the east. For Amanirenas and her people, this diplomatic victory was both practical and symbolic. They not only regained their territory, but also reaffirmed their independence in the face of the world's greatest empire. Kush's resistance demonstrated that even against an immense adversary like Rome, determination and effective leadership could earn respect and lasting results. As the Roman troops marched back to Egypt, leaving Kushite lands behind, the peace agreement paved the way for a period of regional stability. Both sides could move forward, Rome with its renewed focus on eastern threats, and Kush secure in its territory and sovereignty. This was one of the rare occasions where Rome, instead of complete domination, chose diplomacy to end a conflict, a testament to both Amanirenas' strength and Augustus's strategic vision. Despite the Roman incursions and intense conflicts, the Kingdom of Kush maintained its independence, solidifying itself as a regional power. Even in the face of adversity, the the kingdom reorganized and prospered economically. Its strategic location between the heart of Africa and the Mediterranean allowed it to become a crucial hub for the trade of valuable goods, such as gold, ivory, skins, and other highly demanded products of the time. The capital, Meroe, remained a vibrant economic and cultural center, solidifying its prominence in the region. The political and diplomatic skill of Kushite rulers was essential to ensuring stability after the conflicts. The peace agreement with Rome allowed the kingdom not only to rebuild its internal structures, but also to strengthen its relationships with neighboring tribes and territories. On the Roman side, the region's unfavorable conditions, such as difficult terrain and extreme heat, along with the lack of clear strategic benefits, led to the abandonment of plans for further invasions. Rome's military and political priorities shifted to more urgent threats elsewhere in the empire, such as the Germanic tribes in the north and the Parthians in the east. This shift gave Kush the space it needed to grow stronger and continue its independent trajectory. Decades later, Rome ceased to consider Kush a military target, and the relationship between the two peoples became primarily commercial. The kingdom's successful resistance not only preserved its sovereignty, but also demonstrated that even a power as mighty as Rome had its limits at certain frontiers. The Kingdom of Kush became a clear example of how determination, organization, and strategic leadership could challenge even the most powerful empires. Its survival as a sovereign nation and its economic prosperity stand as a significant milestone in the history of relations between Rome and neighboring nations. So what did you think of this incredible story about how the Kingdom of Kush humiliated the mighty Roman army in a defeat that went down in history? A small kingdom, led by the fearless Queen Amanirenas, showed that even the world's greatest empire could be challenged and defeated with strategy, courage, and determination. This victory was not just a military success, but also a lesson in resistance and leadership that resonates to this day. And don't forget, whenever you want to learn more about Rome and how it was formed, you can grab your digital book, 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire, available in the pinned comment. Units are limited, so make sure to get yours today. If you enjoyed learning about this epic battle, don't forget to like the video. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to bring you more content like this. And of course, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming fascinating stories about the Roman world and much more. Leave a comment letting us know what you thought and which topics you'd like to see here. See you in the next video.